Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. As you can probably tell by the thumbnail and title, this is an interview with Esben Raven, the CEO and founder of Kong Orange and lead developer, I guess would be a fair title, for Felix the Reaper.
If unless people expect that I write code when you call me a developer, because I don't. But you could argue that I was lead, definitely.
Yeah, project lead, we'll say.
Yeah.
So Felix the Reaper is as I understand it, it began with a fascination in art history and particularly as it relates to death and how various cultures view death. And I think you got a particular fascination with the cultures that sort of celebrate death. And am I getting all this right so far?
Definitely. A bunch of us actually studied at the history department at the university, local university, and some I was doing video for a game that was being developed at the actual history department, and someone came upon this death dance, or dance macabre as it's sometimes known, or the dance of death, grim fandango even, from Lübeck, an old medieval church painting the painting itself died during the Second World War, but you can still find pictures of it there, or
right,
drawings or whatever. And that's death dancing, sort of in a long chain dance, and the immediate response was that should be made a game about that, and you would argue to an extent there was a game about it, in the sense that Grim Fandango has this, at least in the title, this play on the dance of death. And of course we also recognize that heritage for sure. But yeah, we just went along with it and became game developers while developing this game, more or less, and taught ourselves the ins and outs to the extent that we know them, and also developed other games meanwhile, because this kind of became a big project.
Yeah, it took what was it, 8 years?
Yeah, we started back in 2011 or something like that. But it's not like we worked on it a full team the whole
on and
time.
off.
So it runs out of money, and the production picks back up. Then there's 6 months where you're just waiting for stuff to happen. That was so. I don't know. Effectively, there's been. You could argue that a small team maybe have worked on it on 3 to 4 years or something like that.
Right. So, before we get into the game, I want to get more into Kong Orange itself. So, essentially, this game was established around Felix the Reaper.
Yeah. You could argue that. I was the only one in that group who thought it would be fun to run a company, and I like doing all the producer stuff, and also I like sort of packaging concepts and looking at them from both as an artistic package and a business at the same time. You shouldn't conflate liking that with being a very successful businessman yet, but at least I have some idea of what I do, and I also like to do it, which I guess is a good start. And Felix the Reaper certainly hasn't been a big commercial success. On the other hand, it's a funded project, so we managed to make a lot of right steps along the ways that allowed us to closed several rounds of production funding with different commercial and cultural public funding entities, and so that's some nice milestones to have crossed, and a lot of what we bring into the projects we're working on now, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some things to say about the game, but I will say now that it's very polished. I would say it's just looking at it. It's you can look at it and say that's a game right there. That's a well and proper game. So I mean,
yeah, thanks.
Kudos to that. So has the team grown in size any? I mean, it probably has since its inception. I would imagine it's been 9-10 years now.
Yeah, but it's actually a sort of a loose team, in the sense that everyone is contracting, and they are only working on a Kong Orange project if the project has money. So it's not like I don't necessarily need to bring in projects to make sure that there's enough money to pay salaries each month. Mm-hmm. There's only money being paid out if we have a project to pay them from. So you could argue that the team has always been zero, or is always whatever we need at the current stage in a production. So right now the Felix team is more or less me only, because I'm the only one working on developing some new ideas within the IP. But then we have another bigger project that has I don't know, what are we, 8-9 people at the moment on that project. So, but still, it's not big teams yet. It's probably if the new projects pick up, as I think they will, then we will most likely be in between 10 and 20 people, depending on the current temperature of the project at any given time for the next foreseeable future, I would say. So 4 to 5 years or something like that. I don't expect Kong Orange to suddenly become, like, not yet at least, a bigger company than that.
Gotcha. So on Felix the Reaper, what exactly were the sort of jobs and duties that you have? I mean, or had. In general, the sort of position that you have is kind of nebulous to the lay person as to what they do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, but to some extent, I am the layperson in the room, so I don't code, I don't do animations, I don't dance, I don't write music, I don't do graphics, CG, or audio design, etc. So, but I'm definitely like a concept man, and for the first many years of the project, I was also sort of the guy who was responsible to decipher what the collective wanted and bring it into some form of unity, and keep an eye for that, so that we were not just working in it. Because it was sort of a collective idea, I was just accidentally the one making the company. But gradually it became more okay that it was my decisions and my artistic sort of vision for the whole thing that drove the decisions. But that after a while, we also had known each other for a while, so maybe there was more. We were more comfortable doing it like that. But yeah, it would be, for instance, like I would be the equivalent, if you're not familiar with game production, would probably be a movie director, someone who has a hand in everything. And if someone is in doubt whether Felix picks something up fast enough, I should if it's not answered by a design I already did, I should make a design and make a decision that is this fast enough in all cases, and what if he has to put it down not like this but walk into a square and then put it down over here? How much extra time can we spend doing that in order for him not to become too clumsy to move around for the player? And I'm not saying we reached like the perfect solutions in all these little decisions, but that would basically be me, who was like trying to figure if a through line in these, figure out where the through line was in these decisions, and hold to them, and make sure people didn't forget when they were working on something. Because as an animator, you have, for instance, you have a million balls in the air, and it doesn't seem so important whether one transport animation becomes 3.5 seconds rather than 2.9 seconds, but in the end, if it's played repetitively, that one animation, players will get tired from it, and that little lapse will become critical, and that's where I think someone like me, who is somehow responsible, but also should have the full overlook of the whole thing, because it's important, because there's no, it's just a mess if everyone should have the same like broad view of the whole project, because they will go insane, specifically because they're so specialized at what they do that would screw up their advantage doing what they're best at. Not that I don't appreciate when a lot of the times there's a lot of smart people who knows a lot about games, who works in games, either if they do audio or are doing code or whatever. So I appreciate the input, and they're sometimes also more right than I am. But then I'm at least able to step back and say, okay, but that's a good idea, but then these things have to fall in line. Otherwise, we'll just like move in separate directions.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just getting some coffee.
No problem. So, you ended up partnering with Daedalic for publishing. I was just curious as to how they got involved and at what point they got involved over the course of these 8 years.
I think it was the spring of 2018. We met them for the first time, and then, if I remember correctly, we signed with them during the summer. So it from when they entered our horizon until we signed with them, it didn't take that long. Maybe they regret that now. I don't know, but they could have. When you're doing a big game, to us that this game was a big game, sure. A big production. There's a lot of. You have a lot of blind angles. You don't see a lot of the stuff that you can see in hindsight, or just from playing the game like you did, because you're inside the machine. But I'm a little curious that they didn't have a more outside perspective of some of the stuff we were doing, which I think could have helped, because we actually had the chance to redesign, not like fully save the problematic aspects of the games for the iOS version, but just the hindsight I had from releasing the big release, which was on multiple platforms and just one big storm from the day the Daedalic stepped in until we released, and then just having the opportunity to step back a little and do a redesign for the iOS version. Even I'm not claiming the iOS version is some kind of perfect embodiment of the whole product, but there was a lot of things that was fairly easily improved.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to make those kind of fixes, I'd imagine.
Yeah, definitely. definitely. It's not like we've some of the critique we had for the initial release, or the release that is still out there on PC and Mac and PS4 and Xbox One and Switch. It's the same critique we get for the iOS version. So, but there was a lot about the like with the little funding we had to do the upgrade. We still, I think, was able to do quite a lot, which was nice. And then I think we fell into some sort of black hole at the App Store. It seemed I think they were drawing back because the whole Black Lives Matter and COVID-19 chaos leading into the summer and during the summer, and they were kind of careful not to stir the pot, or whatever you say, because it seemed like we were lined up for quite a lot of store features, but suddenly didn't get any. And that means quite a lot on the App Store. Nobody sees you on the App Store unless you get featured by App Store. That's except when you have, like, I don't know, $2 to buy each user, and
right.
Our game is not a game like that, where then it should be free to play and very well monetized before you pour money like that into acquiring a user. So it's a little hard to know whether it wasn't a really good investment to do that iOS thing, because we didn't get any traction on the App Store. So I think we would never be a giant hit on the App Store, but I think with a few well put features, we would have had some kind of critical amount of downloads that would have at least given us the chance to evaluate whether the effort was worth it doing the redesigns. And I'm still a little bit uncomfortable saying whether it was or not, but I think personally it was definitely worth it. But
sure.
But if it also paid off in terms of the regular players' experience as playing the game, I'm not sure yet, and I for sure don't know if business-wise, I'm sure it wasn't as it turned out, but if it could have been, let's say we'd had the best new game feature on the US App Store, for instance, or some kind of other game of the day feature in some of the big app stores, and had a substantial amount of downloads based on that, maybe that would have given us some clearer insight as to whether we knew what we were doing when we made the redesign.
Right. I also wanted to ask, in regards to Daedalic, were they the ones that had suggested you go multi-platform, or was that an internal idea?
They suggested it.
Okay, I said so.
Yes. So I'm not trying to be. I just said yes. That seemed to be a requirement for even getting a deal. Also, not only with the Daedalic, but with other publishers. We were talking. We actually had interest from quite a lot of publishers. So it wasn't like the Daedalic was our only hope, but they have definitely made the best offer, and I don't regret working with them. But one thing I'm a little bit, like, also in hindsight, skeptical about is the idea that multi-platform releases is the only way to go.
Right.
When you see other similar-sized publishers do platform by platform releases and actually enable themselves to make quite successful games. In our case, what that could maybe have meant was that we could have put more money into not just like technical quality assurance, but also quality of play. So we had a lot more feedback loops prior to release, and then release on maybe only one platform or two, and then have even more time between that release and then releases on other platforms if the initial platforms turned out to be performing well enough for that. which I guess in the end would have made for a better game. I'm saying all this as if the game is shit, but it's not. It's kind of, it's just not doing great in terms of sales, but in terms of user reviews and general reviews, it's not doing like, it's not some bomb that exploded in our faces. It may have felt that way in the beginning, but I mean, like 87% positivity rating on Steam, and on the Xbox, the average is pretty fair, I think, on the user ratings. And even a lot of the bad ratings are just people who are generally mad at Game Pass for not just giving them big AAA titles all the time. So they kind of just hate on a weird indie, rather than playing the game and figure out for themselves whether they like it or not. So I'm not scared away from being a game developer after this experience, for sure.
Right. So there were some gameplay evolutions, as I understand it, over this course of long development. I think I saw a mention of like it being a snake game at one point, and like a rhythm game. So how long was it before you kind of landed on the grid-based puzzle game that it currently is?
I think we spent a sort of low intensity development phase, working our way from it being maybe a worm-based game until the different rhythm. I think we spent maybe less than a year doing that. And then I think it was early 2013 or something, it became this grid-based puzzle, hiding in the shadow kind of idea. Initially, it was a hiding in the shadows, but without the grids. So all the shadows were organically shaped, and that became, at least to our minds, a bit stressful, because there's a lot of, it's kind of hard on the mind to navigate. It's hard enough on the mind to navigate very schematic shadows, but when they become organic and they have this ability to shift, then it becomes even harder, at least to us. So that, I think the grid was actually the last addition to the idea. So the basic idea was there before the grid. I think we actually, even in the iOS version, we even toned down all the organic shadows, so the grid shadows stand out more densely, just to focus it even more. But of course, it's like it's a big juggle of all kinds of darlings that we wanted in that game, and a big sort of artistic compromise getting there. Like I guess most games probably are, but some are more experienced polishing the results than it turned out we were. When I say polishing, I'm not just considering the surface look of the whole thing, which I'm pretty satisfied with, but also especially the level design and the game design concepts, and character movements, speed and stuff like that, feel, controls.
Gotcha. So, 2 more questions. Is that good? Okay. So,
let's do it.
So I wanted to ask about the music. So, as I understand it, each of the songs featured in the game came from a different artist. So, what was the process of bringing these people in and having them make the music for the game?
Uh, it's 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 just friends and people we met. So it wasn't like a big call, and then we had to figure out who could get to be in our game. But quite early on, it became a thing that you should be able to choose your own music while you play it. Inspired maybe mostly by the fact that we could do it, but also, for instance, the car radios in GTA is such a nice thing. The idea that you can turn music on and off and sort of play a radio which is somehow in the game, but also somehow in the real world, because it sort of plays real world music. It's not that this is the argument for doing this at all. It just has sort of a nice magic to it. Like, yeah, I like that kind of thing. It just works. Like when, okay, this is a bad example. I just thought of it, but when the kid in Home Alone, because we were just talking about Home Alone before the recording went on, runs into Donald Trump in the, I think maybe in the second movie or something like that.
Donald Trump, who's that again?
Yeah, I think they edited him out. I think the alt-right crew had a lot of cancel culture regrets about that. But I think it has sort of the same magic that the fiction somehow runs into reality during its fiction, and then I think we had a pretty loose approach to it. So two of the music artists, a guy called Spider Robot, which means like Boy Scout robot, and a guy called Esben, which his artist name is Ebol 42, Eberl 42, I would say, maybe in English. They met up with one of the coders on the game, who is also a music artist, and then they developed sort of an engine together for the music. And this engine, we could just ship it to the music artist, and then they could write the music and send back the whole engine with their music in it, and we could copy it into the game. So when you and many others comment on all the ways in which the music goes into different directions, that was sort of intentional, but it became even more extreme because of the nature of the development of the music. They were completely on their own. They just had some basic rules. It has to be dancey, but that's clearly something you can interpret in many directions when you hear the music. And it has to be in 120 beats per minute, because it wouldn't add up with the animations to the extent it does at all, because they were made at 120 beats per minute. And then they should make it so that at the when you could, there's sort of an intensity slider in the engine, so you can test how the music sounds at 70, and then if you shift it down to 50, what will then play. And so the music artist could actually experiment with the dynamic nature of the music. And the only thing the game does is when you reach a certain milestone, the intensity slider goes to some kind of level that we set it to. And then when you complete the level, it will go to 100, and you'll get what the music artist thinks is 100.
Right.
But I think if I have to do it again, I would have to be more conservative in selecting the music artist, or at least in prodding them to work within a certain like music design, to make sure that everything felt equally dancey to most people.
Right.
So like if you put this on a playlist at a party, I'm not sure people would be dancing all the time.
Yeah. Well, but regardless of how,
would have probably been the game design.
Regardless of how dancey it is, every song in the music for the game is excellent, I would say.
Yeah, I think they're skilled artists for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, they are. I loved working with them.
So, anything that you could talk about in terms of future plans for either Felix or anything else that the studio might be working on?
Yeah, I think the big thing is Vocabulantis. You can look it up at vocabulantis.com. Well, that is the big thing for sure. It's a game where everything you see is made by hand, so it's a handcrafted game both in terms of animations and set building. We work together with a puppet animation studio called Wirefly Animation. It's a partnership with them and an artist and poet called Morten Søndergaard. And it's sort of a big love story between two kids and their inability to tell each other what they feel. But when they play through this whole elaborate adventure platformer, where you can play either single player and control the characters separately, or you can play it as a co-op, you'll finally get the word stream flowing again in Vocabulantis, and then you can maybe tell each other what you feel.
I'm seeing a theme of romance between these two games.
Yeah, and there's no death in this one, so that's good.
Yeah, even better. Do you think that it's probably a little early to say, but do you think that you would maybe scale back and only do one platform for this one?
Yeah, that's too early to say.
Yeah.
It's an insanely expensive project, so we'll be if we get lucky enough to I shouldn't say it's insanely expensive, but it's expensive compared to whatever else we've done. So whoever comes along and funds this, if they have an inclination towards multi-platform releases, then I don't think we're going to be the ones who says, "Hey, we don't want your money." But yeah, I think I'm not against the idea, but I think there could be ways in which to make it easier on the team to do a multi-platform release. But I don't think it's easy on any team. So even look at what happens with the giant game concepts that should have their shit together, right? So just imagine what can go wrong when it's just us who embark on an even bigger project than Felix, where everything is made by hand, and then suddenly also have to be aware of all the weird issues of, and now new consoles. So I'm not super optimistic that it's going to be multi-platform, but of course I to some extent hope it, because it's also I can see where they're coming from a business angle when they argue you should be on multiple platforms on day one. But on the other hand, if you make nothing on day one, even if you're on multiple platforms, there's no salvaging it. Right. The decision was made, and it's not like you can make it back on the Switch release because it's already there. So
yeah. Well, at least you'll have, if you do go multi-platform, you'll have a little bit of experience with Felix. Well, thank you very much, Esben. I very much appreciate you taking time to meet with me. It's been a great pleasure. And thanks to you guys for watching. Check out Felix the Reaper. It's on PS4, Xbox, Switch, Steam, and now iOS. Did I miss anything?
Yeah. And keep an eye out for the universe. Hint, hint, tease.
Ooh, that's exciting. Anywhere else you want to point people?
No, to you. I think you're good at what you're doing. More people should start watching your stuff. So make sure someone pays attention to you. one way or the
I'll
other.
send an email to Susan Wojcicki at YouTube and see what she can do.
Yeah, and do a nicer review next time, then I'll share it also. But this it's a bit like you put me in a tough spot here.
We'll wait for your next game to come out, and I'll give it a review, and we'll see how it goes.
That's good, Joe.
All right. Thanks for watching, folks. See you in the next one.
See you guys.